Nice to have you here. I was really actually looking forward to
Yeah.
have this talk with you. I really was really impressed by your social media and what have you and the things you do. Actually, I noticed you first training with Dale, and I was like, I don't because I'm his friend on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I was checking, what you do. And I was like, oh wow, she has an interesting story. I need to have her here.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive straight into that. And why don't you tell me a little bit about your TED Talk? I mean, from all different angles, when it happened and the content and everything.
Yeah. So the TED Talk I gave
Don't worry.
a little bit up. Perfect. Yeah. So I gave a TED Talk last year or 2022 it was, and yeah, it's been a big journey to get there and to stand on the stage. So my story in very short, people can go watch my TED Talk if they want the full story, but very short, I used to be a professional show jumper, horse rider. I grew up in Denmark and I was horse riding since I was 6 years old. And when I finished high school, the only thing I wanted was just to, be a professional horse rider, live of my sport. And I did it. I got a job offer in China and I moved to China when I was 19. And there I was, riding professionally for, it ended up only being actually 6 weeks because after 6 weeks I was in a really bad car accident. And this car accident is also what I'm telling about in the TED Talk, how that changed my life. I think when you are so far away and something like this happened, it's a very, very traumatic experience. I was one of the only survivors in the accident. My mom had to fly to China. It's, just the story my parents have from this is like a different story. It's also a crazy story, And so this accident kind of, changed my life. I decided when I got back to Denmark, I was very determined I wanted to get back into horse riding again. But there was something that just didn't feel like I didn't have that burning desire anymore. I think suddenly something had changed in me. And I think I also realized that there were so many things I haven't done. I had been so focused on this goal, which was to be a professional horse rider, that I maybe had missed out on other things. And I think the accident and that whole experience made me realize that. And so I actually decided after my recovery, I tried to get back into horse riding. And then after I'd been doing that, even started competing again, I decided that I didn't want it anymore. And I decided to sell the horses. And kind of by coincidence, I ended up buying a one-way ticket to Australia. So when I was 20 years old, I moved to Australia.
Everything usually starts down under. Everything starts in Australia. Huh?
I know, yeah.
For everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
Not only surfing, everything. Yeah. It's for me as well.
I know. And obviously Australia became the place where I fell in love with surfing. And I think it also was like such a big healing journey for me, Australia, because I got to just be me, I got to be kind of like a normal 20-year-old. And where when I was back in Denmark, I was like, constantly reminded of this happened to me. And, I was still, it was also really hard for me to give up horse riding because it had been my whole life. So going to Australia and kind of starting over somehow.
Starting fresh.
Yeah, and reinventing myself.
Yeah.
That was like a really big part. And then, the love of surfing came. And I think, when you have been a professional athlete and you have that mindset, you are like, okay, I want to learn how to surf. Like you're going to go into it with everything you have. And I, went down to Bondi Beach every day with my board and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And and that's how my whole surfing journey started.
That's nice. It's really interesting what you say because I found it that sometimes when you change location in life, like what happened to you, but I hear it over and over, and I can also identify for myself suddenly when you're alone in a different place, you're not what your environment expect you to be, because sometimes you also become the reflection of what other people accept, kind of sees you, and you're like fall into their expectation. You're the funny guy, or you're the horse riding guy, or you're the surfer. Doesn't matter what. But suddenly when you shuffle the cards, you move to a new location, you find yourself with endless possibilities suddenly, and like it's really amazing. And the surfing Bondi Beach, you said it's. I don't find it such a good surfing spot, I mean, maybe it has some emotional feel.
I think I was like super beginner. I was just learning.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
back
No, I
then
get it.
it
I
was
get it.
like just practicing.
It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite beaches. Don't get me wrong. I love Bondi, but I've spent many years in Australia, and but I think surfing. Wow, there you have so many different spots. Even just just a little bit outside of Sydney.
Yeah, and I also got to those spots when I became a better surfer. But this was where we were living, and we were working, and just doing the whole backpacker experience. But of course, this was like only the very beginning of the journey. Also, like now you were like asking me about my TED talk, and this was a very healing journey for me personally, and where I wanted to go, and kind of as I said, reinventing myself. But one thing was that I never talked about the accident. I had a lot of friends who then afterwards knew me for 5-6 years, and they never knew that this actually happened to me, because I just kept it quiet. I felt like, okay, if I just don't speak about it, I will, it'll go away. And this was, 10 years ago. And back then there was a bit of when you're that young, and there was a bit of another view of maybe like therapy and stuff like that. So when I got offered therapy after the accident by my insurance and so on, I was like, no, I don't need that. And of course, today I wish that I had said yes, but I also, I managed to do it my own way. But it was, of course, a long process, so I didn't talk about it for many years.
Crazy. This is crazy.
And then it was actually my first or second winter here in Portugal. It was, I lived here for almost 8 years now.
Wow, really? In Ericeira?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, it's been my base. I've been also traveling a lot, but it's been my base. I moved here to study my master's degree, and then I stayed. And so one of my first winters here, you can imagine this place was very different 8 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
And
I'm here for 5 years, so I know.
And I remember my first winter. It was kind of as it is today, stormy, raining for months, and I was. I didn't have many friends around. I was in university, and it was really, really lonely to be here, and I was really questioning why I was here. But I think it gave me the time to kind of sit with my thoughts and really, going through everything that happened with the accident. And I decided to write it all down. And I think writing it down, it helped me, because I was like, I always had a story going on in my head. Yeah. And then I finally wrote it down. And after I wrote it down, I sent it to a friend of mine who I was studying with in Australia. And she read my article, and she helped me really turn it into like
a talk.
A great article.
Okay.
And after that, I sent it to my parents, and my parents was like, crying, and they were like, this is like so beautiful, you have to share this with the world, they say. Because I was a little bit afraid, like I didn't know if I wanted to share it, and because it was also like for my parents, it was also a subject we were going on like tippy toes on, because I knew how hard it had been for them, they knew how hard it was been for me, and no one really wanted to bring it up. So this also opened up for a really good conversation with them. And then after that, I sent it in actually to a surf magazine, and I won this like essay competition, and they like posted it straight away, and I was kind of like not really ready for it, and I was like, okay, now it's out there. And then shortly after, I got contacted by Huffington Post,
Wow.
So, and then they posted the article, and then after that, it was kind of just like a snowball. And then I did 2 feature films actually about my story.
Yeah.
And then I think after I then decided to share it, it was obviously like a really good, like for me, like there was so many people reaching out to me to share their stories with me as well that had nothing to do with my story, but just everything to do with like opening up and being vulnerable. And, you know, and I found out that I could inspire a lot of people just by sharing my experience. And I think since then I was always like, oh, I really want to like one day stand on a stage and share my story. And I've always been a big fan of TED Talks, so obviously that was
a platform, the best platform for you.
that was a big goal. Or suddenly it became the big goal that, like, wow, if I could one day do a TED Talk, that would be, you know, a dream. And then COVID came, and I actually got fired from the job I had then, and started working a bit in a different industry. But I was also, I wanted to learn new things, and I connected with this woman on LinkedIn who was a professional speaker coach.
Okay.
And I ended up taking her course, and it was during COVID, so everything was online, and we did like this course over a month. And she really believed in my story, and she was like, I want to help you get your first gig. And then she got me in touch with this huge health conference in Norway, and I had a few talks with them, and they ended up hiring me to do the opening keynote talk for this huge event.
Wow.
And I was kind of, instead of, you know, them paying me to talk, I was also very like, oh, it's my first time. And I asked them to instead get me a speaker coach, so I could do a good job, because I was like, okay, in the end, that's going to be more valuable for me than, you know,
getting the payment. You wanted to get the coaching.
Exactly. So I ended up getting coaching for Joanna, who I did the course with.
Okay.
And then in 2021, I did my first big keynote. It was my first time ever standing on a stage sharing my story. And yeah, it was very, very special. Joanna, who had been there, my speaker coach since day one, she was there present at the conference, and my mom and my best friend. And it was in front of almost 2,000 people.
Wow. So when you actually, sorry for interrupting, when you arrived to the TED Talk, you're actually, you know, this is why you look so confident. I mean, you look really confident, and you're like, you know, and so you actually, it wasn't your first time.
No, it was then after the talk in Norway, I also started getting booked for a few talks. I went back to Denmark, did a few talks on schools. I'm really passionate about talking to teenagers as well, because I feel like that's a place where I can, you know, really make a difference. And because I don't think it's not easy to be a teenager nowadays with social media, all this comparison, and, you know, we're all going through stuff. So I'm really passionate about that. So I ended up going quite a bit back to Denmark and speaking at schools, universities, and so on. And then I applied for a lot of TED Talks, and I got some rejections, but I'm like a person, I don't take no for an answer. So
I can understand that, yeah.
So yeah, I was like, no, I'm not going to let that knock me down. I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue, you know, like trying to grow as a speaker. And then January 2022, I got an email from a TED organizer that they had picked me as one of their speakers for their event in June. And then, of course, I was super happy, but I also knew that, okay, now is when the real hard work is starting, because I had to come up with an original talk for TED Talks. I cannot just use the talk I used in Norway.
You can't.
No.
You can't because you don't want to. You can't because there is some...
No, that's a rule.
A rule. It needs to be like a completely new, like a new angle of the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, you can use elements, and of course, it's my story. So there is a lot of things that are similar, but the talk itself
it needs to be original. Yeah.
It was a new talk, and the subject was different. In Norway, I was talking a lot about vulnerability. And in my TED Talk, I'm talking about fear.
Yeah. Yeah. This is epic. This is really a like epic story. So just to get my head around the timing from the accident until the TED Talk, how many years?
The accident to the TED Talk, 12 years.
Wow. So that's like a really, so 80,
Almost 12
20, so, and then basically 32, you've done the TED Talk.
Yeah, so 19, 20, 31, yeah.
Wow.
19 and then 31.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So this accident is you know, never let a good crisis slip away. I think they say like this something. So this event in your life completely shaped your whole. I mean, everything. It's like a pivotal moment, huge. And you say for the first 5 years you didn't speak a word, not with your parents, not with anyone, close friends.
Of course, I would speak a little bit about it, but I think I always, back then I felt a lot like I didn't want to burden anyone with it. You know, obviously it's like a very heavy story to just, you know, talk to people about. And so, like, of course I could talk to my family about it and stuff, but we also did sometimes, but I think it was only after I really shared it that we had that really deep conversation about it. But I often felt like I would mention it and then people will tell me, oh, you don't have to tell me about that.
Really?
Yeah.
This is what you thought?
No, I felt like that was the answer I got a lot. But I think it was because people was like, they didn't know if it was something I wanted to talk about. So now I learned to say like, no, I'm super open about it. If you want to hear about it, I'm happy to tell you my story. But back then I felt like it was because, you know, they didn't want to hear about it, but I think it was just people being, you know, polite and they didn't want to overstep any of my boundaries.
Okay.
So, you know, but back then I saw it like, oh, then you know, so I see it in a different way now.
I understand. Can I ask you about it?
Yes.
What do you remember? What's your last memory? You remember, is that okay to ask?
Yeah. No, my last memory is just driving. Like I remember.
You remember you're in a car?
Yeah, but first when I woke up, I didn't remember that. Like the first thing I'm also saying that in my TED Talk, the first thing I'm saying when I get my dad on the phone, he's like the first voice. He's on the phone completely in panic because this Chinese woman has been answering the phone. And, you know, I was very young. I was 19 at the time. So my parents, they called me almost every day to check in how I was, blah, blah, blah. And this day, my dad just could not get a hold of me. So he kept calling. My dad is as persistent as me. So he kept calling.
Can I ask how many hours? Was it like the accident and until you guys talk, was that like?
Actually, I have no idea.
You don't know?
No, I think it's like maybe like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, I understand.
And like, because I'm in this hospital, I've been passed out, probably on a lot of pain medicine. And then the first time I open my eyes, I just get a phone shoved to my ear with my dad in complete panic. And he's like, Emilie, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm just like, that's like
everything's blurry.
Yeah, I just remember like really like opening my eyes and just being like, Dad, I think I fall off a horse. Because that was the only thing I could think of would have happened, you know, because that was why I was there.
And it can happen. It could be dangerous sport.
And then I just remember like looking down at my arms and, you know, I suddenly I just have like there's a lot of blood everywhere. I can't feel my legs and I just start to like panic and suddenly it's like I remember the last thing was that I was in a car and I just remember saying to my dad like, no, Dad, I've been in a car accident. And then I pass out.
Wow.
And then that's all my parents get to hear. And then, obviously they just start like, okay, we just need to get to China.
Yeah, of course. Which part of China was that?
North.
I don't know China, you know, Beijing, Shanghai. Or
Yeah, it's like Beijing towards the coast.
Okay, that's crazy. I'm just thinking because I have 2 daughters, so I'm thinking about like what happened if like I'm gonna, get a call like that from my daughter. I mean, it's crazy. It's really crazy. What I feel, what kind of like, I would be completely crazy. And and the rest of the people in the car, you said they died, right? I mean, 2 of them died, 1 of them stayed alive. What's
Me and the driver survived.
Yeah.
And 2 of the other passengers passed away.
And you knew them? The people that passed away?
I knew one of them.
Yeah.
He was the manager and the boss of the place where I was working.
Okay. Okay. I understand. Crazy. Completely crazy. Wow. And suddenly this so you had the accident, and then it took you how long to like physically recover? Like be able to walk, be able to lift some small things, like walk around the room?
Well, I was actually I was recovering quite fast.
Because you're an athlete, so everything was...
Yeah, and I was 19, so they were like the people at the hospital was very impressed how fast I was recovering. So it was actually already up. So I got into this small hospital, and then I got moved to a bigger hospital, and then after the first night, and I was still like kind of passed out, and then suddenly I opened my eyes and my mom was there.
Yeah.
And she was also the one who told me, about what happened to the other passengers and so on. And we stayed at the hospital for a few nights where my mom stayed with me. And then we actually got permission to go home and sleep at the hotel right next to the hospital.
Okay.
And because then I just had to get into the hospital every morning, and I had to spend the whole day there to get my medicine, to get checked up, blah, blah, blah. But I had like permission to go.
Yeah, because you're in a stable condition.
I was stable, and as soon as they got, I had the CAT scan and they had my lungs and my internal bleedings under control, and they could see it was getting better. So the recovery wise, physically, I recovered fast, where I felt like I could do stuff, but they were very like, no, you can't get your pulse up, you can't, do any exercise. So I remember at some point we wanted to go out and see some of the city, because I was after like maybe 10 days in the hospital, and I was finally like kind of okay. And they were like, yeah, but you have to be in a wheelchair because you can't even walk.
Okay.
And that was so weird, because I felt fine, I felt kind of like, oh, but I can do things.
But they were very methodically following the rules. Yeah.
And then when I finally got back to Denmark after 2 or 3 weeks, we were allowed to fly back to Denmark, and I got to the hospital in Denmark, where they also did all the checks and on me to see, when I could start exercising. And they were again like, no, you can't start exercising, especially not horse riding, because you can't have a fall, you can't be around the horses. But I was, again, very determined. I wanted to get back into horse riding, and I felt fine. So I remember I was like, without my parents knowing, I was still going to the stable, and I was riding without them knowing.
So you went back riding, let's say, a couple of months after?
Yeah, probably after Denmark, probably a month after I came back.
Okay.
But then I still remember my dad reminded me of that. One day we are a very sporty family, and we were going to the fitness center together. And we were warming up, and we were standing on the crosswalker. So me and my dad were standing next to each other, and we were just doing like a 10-minute warm up. And my dad, he was like doing that, and suddenly he looks over, and how you're holding this, and you can see your pulse. And my pulse was like 180.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was like,
you should get off the treadmill.
You should get off the treadmill. And he got really worried. And I was like, oh, it's fine. And there was like, because my body was still
adjusting,
in recovery.
Recovering, crazy. Yeah. And you say you're a sporty family. I'm just curious. I mean, everyone is athletes, or this is something that was... Are they into horse riding as well, or different kind of sports, or?
No, not at all. The horse riding
was your bug.
That was my thing. But sport in general is the whole family. My brother used to be a elite golf player, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and my whole family used to play golf, and then my dad, he was a really good handball player when he was younger, and
Yeah.
he was actually a windsurfer as well.
Yeah, really?
And my mom was a semi-professional gymnast.
Wow, nice. Very impressive.
Yeah.
So, professional golfing, is golf big in Denmark?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite big.
Really? I'm actually really I really want to start golfing. I'm really I'm really curious. It looks like it doesn't look very physical, but when you get to understand the mechanics of the drive and everything, it looks like you understand how physical it can get. And but it just looks like fun, just hanging around the golf course. Yeah. And I wanted to talk to you about Denmark actually, because it's I mean, you took surfing to the next level in a way. You change, flip the page, and then you decided, okay, surfing is gonna be my thing. But surfing in Denmark, is that a thing? Like, is it a thing like golfing is?
No, it's not. But it's becoming more popular, and we have waves. But I came back from Australia after spending almost a year there, and I was hooked on surfing. And actually, I didn't know that you could surf in Denmark before I went to Australia. And I remember I was just about to start university in Denmark after coming back from Australia, and I was searching on Google about surfing in Denmark, and there was this group, there was this forum where you could send a message, and I asked if anyone had experienced surfing in Aarhus, which was the city I was going to study in.
Where?
Aarhus.
Aarhus?
Yeah.
I'm completely sorry. I'm so I'm like, basically I don't know nothing about Denmark. I'm like, don't I know it's somewhere in Northern Europe. But if you put the map, I wouldn't know where it is.
No, a lot of people don't know where it is, but it's the second biggest city in Denmark, and it's by the sea.
Denmark itself is quite small, right?
Super small. But we have a lot of ocean because we have a lot of islands, and we are all surrounded by ocean.
So is Denmark, because I read an article, I'm just going off topic for a second, but I'm going to go back to that, but because I read an article or like some sort of a video, I don't remember what it was, but it was some information about surfing in Norway. I think it was called Lofoten. You heard about that?
Yeah, I've been there.
Is it close?
No. Lofoten is like on the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
Even if you're in Norway, it's far away.
Okay, sorry. So I'm just I'm trying to get the geography. So Denmark is an island, or is it bordering? What's the border?
Germany.
Okay, it borders Germany.
Yeah.
It's northern Germany?
Yeah. So it's the north. It's just below Norway and Sweden, and then there's Denmark.
Okay. No, okay, I got it. So it's like, okay, so but it's still Europe mainland.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's on the east side.
Well, it's just bordering to Germany, just right up.
Right up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
On top of Germany, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, of course. You have the northern sea.
Yeah.
And if there is storms in that area, you get to have some waves.
Yeah, we are like quite blocked from the UK, but we get some waves, and we have a lot of kite surfing and windsurfing. The country has a big history for that. As I told you, my dad used to be a great windsurfer, one of the first in Denmark, I think. And so it's a country with a lot of ocean activities.
Yeah.
And a lot of good sailors and so on. So surfing is becoming more and more popular. But back then, I didn't know that you could actually surf in Denmark. So I wrote a message on this forum, and a guy called Matthias wrote back. He's like, yeah, you could surf in Aarhus. We're surfing tomorrow morning at 5 a.m.
Oh.
You remember, like, Denmark in the summer, we have light. Pretty much it gets light at 4 a.m. So 5 a.m., I was like, okay, I want to join, I was very determined to keep surfing. So I put my wetsuit, my 6 mil wetsuit on at home.
You already had a 6 mil wetsuit?
Yes.
Okay, you were prepared.
I was prepared.
Okay.
I was like, I want to do this. So put my wetsuit on at home, and I biked down with my surfboard under my arm. I biked down to the water, and already when I arrived, I could hear them like screaming and laughing in the water, and I was just like, oh my god, I never met these guys before, and it was these 3 guys, and I paddle out, and they were so nice, and they became like my Danish surf crew. And already in the weekend, we went to the place called Cold Hawaii, which is in Klitmøller and Vorupør. It's on the west coast of
Cold Hawaii?
Yeah, west coast of Denmark, where we have more consistent waves.
Okay.
And so
Clean conditions sometimes?
it can be, yeah.
It can be?
Yeah.
So, but like, can you find, like, is there point breaks or something like you know, is there like a sexy, you know, right-hander somewhere nobody knows about where I can go there and find? Yeah, there is. You don't want to tell.
No, but there is some good waves. If you want more information about waves in Denmark, you should invite Oliver Hartkop in to talk on the podcast. He lives here during the winters. He's a Danish surfer, very good surfer. That I then also met back then, and he's like been surfing on the QS. And
really?
He's an amazing surfer.
So it's like it could happen over there. It can happen because there is, as you said, there is an ocean culture, and there is the condition, not the perfect, but there are there, and there's storms coming and throwing swells into the beach. That sounds really cool. And then how did you end up being a competitor? Was that like something, because you have this in you, you're like a competitive person, so you're like, okay, I've been competitive horse riding all my life, and now I'm going to be a competitive surfer, of course. Was that like the path or?
No, it was never like my dream to like compete in surfing. It just, I think in Denmark, I ended up being part of this community in like while I was in university. Almost every weekend we would go to Klitmøller and we'll surf, and they started like at this time they were really trying to develop the Danish surf tour. So we were actually having quite a good competitive scene in Denmark with a lot of Norwegian and Swedish coming down to surf competitions in Denmark, and it was like a kind of like a whole community. And then I just ended up getting involved, and oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
And so I just ended up getting involved, and it was and then I did my first competitions in Denmark. I only did like a few, and then I moved here to Portugal to study my master's. And when I moved here, actually, then obviously I improved a lot during the first summer. I was working as a surf instructor for the summer before I started university, and there was this Australian guy, Jason, who became a really good friend of mine, and he was a great surfer, and he just kind of took me under his wing and just, he taught me a lot. And so because of that, then suddenly I got a call from the Danish Surf Federation asking if I was interested in going to Morocco to represent Denmark at the European the Eurosurf, so the European Championship.
The European Championship was in Morocco?
Yeah. So Morocco in the surf nation, they are like part of Europe.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I was just needed to get that straight.
And first I was like, well, I'm not good enough for that at all, but it was a really cool experience, traveling with the team, and obviously, we were complete underdogs compared to Portugal, France, anyone. But then there was also the Norwegian and the Swedish, and everybody.
Northern countries.
Yeah, all the northern countries, and of course we're not as good at surfing as the southern country because we have a different, like our culture is way newer. So, but it became a way, and our job was also to try to inspire the younger generation in Denmark, so we can have people start surfing when they're
6,
young.
7,
and exactly,
which
we are really seeing now. And but it was also cool because everybody there had such a big respect for us coming from Denmark or Norway or wherever we came from, that we are actually also coming to compete. And it was really cool that the Portuguese, the French, everybody took us serious, even though we were not at the same level, but it was really nice. It was a cool community, and I really fall in love with that. And then I just started doing all those Eurosurf. I did the ISA, the World Surf Games, a few times as well. And
cool. That's cool. Yeah, surfing is this kind of sport. It's like there is camaraderie. It's like it's very competitive, but it's on the other hand, it's like you're part of the family.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's super super inspiring. When was that competition in Morocco? In
That
Tagazout?
first one, no, it was actually in Casablanca.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there any? Is there surf over there? I'm just.
Yeah, it was like a beach break, and I just remember it was massive, and I actually ended up winning a heat because I was the only surfer in that heat who made it to the lineup because it was a beach break, just like 8-foot beach break, just like boom, boom. So I don't think I think I took off on a wave. I don't even think I made the takeoff in that.
But you were the only one who actually got some points.
Yeah,
because all the rest were like,
Oh, you were like
eating
diving 100 times to get out.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I just remember it was a bit of a battle, but yeah, it was a great experience.
Cool. Can you share with me your most challenging surf session?
My most challenging surf session.
Like the biggest slab, or like kind of like something that you were like not sure you're gonna, like, how can I say it, like you were like looking back and you're like, wow, I was really dumb paddling out that day, something like that.
Oh, I think we all had days like that
Yeah,
as
of course.
surfers, and where you get a little bit like over your head, and you think that but then sometimes it also
I'm not, by the way. I'm like
And-
I'm scared from like 1 meter wave. No, not 1 meter. 2 meter waves is like, wow. It's like huge for me. But like,
But yeah, so of course I had like sessions like that where you paddle out and you're just sitting there and be like, okay, it's a bit bigger than I thought, and
yeah.
yeah. So I think I had lots of those, and sometimes you're like, okay, I know if I want to get in, I'm gonna take it on the head.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and also like this in August I spent 3 weeks in Indonesia, and that was the first time I was there during the swell season, and
Yeah.
definitely had a few sessions where I was like, okay, it's quite heavy here.
It can get heavy, huh?
Yeah, it can get super heavy.
I never surfed there, but Uluwatu can get really heavy. I've seen some photos. It can get, yeah, definitely. And and you can only paddle. You need to go through this cave or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's crazy. But you enjoyed Bali?
Yeah, I enjoyed Bali a lot, and I also went. I've been there several times, and I always go to Bali, but then I travel from Bali there depending on where the swell is.
Okay, super cool. Super, super cool. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about Nazaré and your, because last week was your first session surfing Nazaré, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is like a big landmark, I would say. How was it?
Oh, it was super fun to try.
Yeah.
It was obviously on a really small day in Nazaré. Still, the forecast is like 10 to 15 foot, but it was, very, very small in Nazaré. But it was a really cool experience. It was my first time ever trying to tow in. So I never really wakeboarded before. So the whole, learning to get up on the board. And yeah, I was such a kook at that in the beginning. Jose, who took me out, they were having a good laugh at me. Like, because first we were like in around the harbor in the flats, teaching me
Yeah.
how to do the safety, the pickup, if you wipe out after the wave, and then to get up on the board. And I just kept like face planting. And the next day I was so sore, like it was crazy, like in my back, in my legs.
Yeah, it's
everything.
quite difficult to pop up on
Yeah.
those waves.
So,
But did you find it easier to have a jet ski covering for you, like doing the rescue and all that?
oh, of course, it's nice to.
It's almost like being invincible, right?
Yeah, but I think that Nazaré is such a, it's such a crazy spot because in the end it's a beach break, right? So the waves are coming from there and there, and and I also ended up getting a set on the head, and
Yeah?
I had to.
I think you like getting a set on the head.
And then I had to get to the beach and pick up the board, you know.
Oh, sorry. Don't worry about it.
And but then, of course, then it's nice that when you had a wave, you have a jet ski to pick you up, and you don't have to paddle.
That's nice.
So, but like it definitely, you know, I've been working in Nazaré for the last 2-3 winters a lot. So finally, you know, getting to try to be. I've been on the jet ski before in the water, but trying to, you know, experience it surf-wise was amazing, and it gives me like even more respect for what the guys are doing. You know, it's first of all, big wave surfing is such a team sport. You know, you really have to trust your driver. There's so many things that can go wrong, like what they put their bodies through. You know, when I surfed there, it was like 10th of the size of what they do, and you know, I took a set on the head, and I was like, oh, that's quite like it really like sucks you down there.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you surf like serious waves here, Cochos and Pedra Branca. You go to Cochos quite often, right?
Yeah, I go there sometimes. So, like, I like.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. It's okay. And how do you approach the? I mean, mentally and physically. How do you train for like a heavy day in Cochos? Or not? I understand it's not the heaviest, but like even a 6 foot day in Cochos can be quite a challenge.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm still not the most amazing surfer on the planet. You know, as you know, I started, you know, quite late, or when I was 20 surfing. But I think also living here for many years, of course, I'm super familiar with all the spots, and I feel very confident when I surf here because I know. But for me, I think the most important thing is to know my limit and to know my level. And I think now before I think I was more like, oh, I need to go out, it's big and it's perfect and I need to prove something. And now I'm more like, nah, it's like today I'm not feeling it, or like, or if it's like, when it's like, oh, I can see like, okay, it might be on my limit. It's really depending on where how I'm feeling that day. And for me, it's always important to just know that I can get out, you know, of the situation by myself.
Okay.
You know, I think for all surfers, like, you shouldn't go in if you're like, okay, if I get in trouble, if I break a leash, if something happens, I would need help, you know, for example, surfing some spot into high tide where there might not be a way out or something like that. So I always make sure if it's like a little bit like out of my comfort zone, that, okay, I know that at least I can take a set on the head and I can get in safely, you know. And even if I break my leash, I know how to swim in. I know, you know, all these things is very important for me when I go out and I know it's a bit out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, no, definitely. But still, maybe a bit more specific. Do you do some things like do you have like a workout regime? Do you keep active outside of the water? Do you run? Do you do cardio? You lift? I mean, do you kind of do some stuff?
Definitely. I love sports, and I think I'm a little bit like of an sports addict. I love surfing, but I also like enjoy a lot of other sports. So right now I'm training MMA 3 times a week.
MMA?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
In Board Riders, we have like some morning classes 3 times a week, and that's like really like a part of my routine, and I really, really love it. Then I do a lot of mountain biking.
Yeah.
I love to walk. I walk a lot. So yeah, people will probably see me always like walking around the roads out there. But yeah, and then I do gym as well. So I have a pretty good, like, I love my morning routine, and I get up super early. I get up at like 6:30 every day, and I would be in the gym or at MMA by 7. And so I always work out before work.
Okay. That's cool. And basically almost every day.
Yeah.
Wow. And MMA, do you find it helping for surfing?
Well, I think it's like, you know, it's really good for like also like upper body strength, for coordination, for cardio. I think it has a lot of good components that is definitely, could help you in the water.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Can I ask you about your new HBO project? Because you published it, so it means that you can talk about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in Nazaré and around big wave surfing the last few years, as I said earlier. And now I'm also taking on a new project for 100 Foot Wave, which is the program on HBO, where I'm going to help them elevate the social media and, taking care of that whole project. So I put together a team and we are going to work on that. And it's really exciting. And we are now spending a lot of time in Nazaré. And, I always love when I really like the combination of being close to the athletes, but then also being creative and coming up with all these content ideas and kind of, executing on that and seeing it, and then also being behind the, studying all the data, and so it's it's a lot of different things, and I love and I thrive when I'm not just doing one thing, when I'm doing a lot of different things, and this really allows me to do a lot of different things, and I'm still also, doing, it's not a full-time thing, so I'm also still doing all the other things that I love to do.
Epic, really epic. Emilie, thank you so much. It was really cool talking to you.
No, it's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no. I'm really happy that that we had the chance to finally do it, because you're in Nazaré all the time. But I had many people from Nazaré coming here in the last week or two, because it was really epic, really pumping Nazaré. So I talked to, I don't know if you know Miguel Padrera. Miguel is actually, you know him. He told me he knows you.
Yeah.
Miguel Padrera and Lorenzo Katzenstein.
Yeah, I know them. And Hermine?
Hermine, Hermine. They were here, really good fun. And yeah, so like, this, I think it's a really good time of the year to talk about Nazaré. Do you have like an athlete that, I should watch, like someone that like you think specifically will be like amazing in Nazaré next season or this season, or like one of the athletes, because it's eventually it's a competitive sport, and you think there is like an upcoming star, maybe in the women section, or maybe in the men, doesn't really matter. Someone that really we should put our eye on.
Well, I think there's big wave surfing is getting a lot of people are starting way younger. Before it was like a lot of guys with a lot of experience, and maybe after their professional career as a surfer, they will go into big wave surfing and kind of pursue that, because they had so much experience about the ocean and all that you need for big wave surfing. And now there's a lot of young and upcoming guys who start surfing big waves really young. I think one guy, for example, to look out for can be like Ben Lark. He's 18 or 19 years old, Scottish guy who is, you've seen him charging, the slabs in Ireland, and now he's like really putting time into Nazaré. He's been teaming up with Andrew Cuddy sometimes, and yeah, it's cool to see him. And then of course also Tony, Portuguese young talent as well.
Which Tony?
Tony Laureano.
Tony Laureano, okay.
Yeah, who is, from Portuguese, who spent a lot of time in Nazaré as well. I think he's been quite unfortunate being a lot injured lately, but I think he's also, a really good guy. And then I think everybody is also looking now at Clement Roseiro, who got second to the Big Wave Challenge.
Yeah.
So, and these guys are just, keep pushing the limits, and it's, really, really amazing to see.
When they say Tudor Challenge, who is that Tudor?
Tudor is the sponsor.
The sponsor?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of, because I thought in the beginning it's Joel Tudor. You know Joel Tudor?
Yeah, no, Tudor is a watch.
So it's a watch brand.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're sponsoring the Nazaré
Yeah,
event.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. And then I think a lot of now you go to Nazaré and you see more and more women up there as well. So obviously, I think the women big wave surfing scene is going to progress a lot as well over the coming years, and really excited for that. Now, Justine is, the queen of big wave surfing, and I'm also excited to see her coming back after, having a baby, and she's, I think she's all girls like hero. Like she's, she's such an amazing surfer because she's such a, we have a lot of water men out there who does like several different things and, all water sports. But Justine is really like this one. She's a water woman, she's an excellent longboarder, stand-up paddler, foil surfer, big wave surfer, normal surfer. Like she can do everything.
She has it all. Mm-hmm. Wow. Justine what? Can
Dupont. Justine Dupont.
Justine Dupont. She's French?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They have a big wave surfing in French? They have like a big wave spots over there?
Yeah. They also get some big waves there.
Okay.
Not like Nazaré, but yeah.
Because there's quite a few French people surfing in Nazaré. Mm-hmm. And also some German, I know, and like it's becoming like this northern, like it's like becoming not northern, but becoming like a very European niche surfing Nazaré. Like almost like, it's like chargers, big chargers from Europe coming.
Yeah.
There's
a lot, but I think you go there and you will see a lot of different nationalities.
Of course.
Yeah, and it's a great place. It's an amazing place, and so many great characters up there.
Definitely. Yeah. Emilie, thank you so much. Really appreciate that you come. Really appreciate your time. Wow.
Thank you.
Good talk. Really inspiring. And
thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.